How's it going, everybody? It's Zach with Dude Minis, and today we're going to paint up one of my favorite characters from the 41st millennium, Commander Farsight. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I try to put out hobby content once every few weeks and would greatly appreciate your support. But without any further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Here's a quick shot of all the colors I used. I will feature the color before I use it in the tutorial, but I just wanted to add this in so that you could have kind of a reference as to what I used for everything. We're going to start off by priming the model with Vallejo's German Red Brown. Then with Hull Red, I'm just going to kind of reinforce the shadows and just try to spray from the underside of the model. Now red is a very transparent color, and because of that, when we do this zenithal highlight with the ivory, it's really going to make that red pop, and the brown is going to look very, very good as a shadow color to that red. After giving this some time to dry, we're going to come in with burnt red and bold pyro red and 50-50 mixed, and we're just going to come in and hit the first rounds of red on the armor panels. Now I'm moving the model around a lot, and it's really just making sure that I'm not missing any parts of it between his jetpacks on his back and his armor panels. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything with this first base coat. But then we're going to come in with just the bold pyro red, thin down some, and we're just going to apply this in a zenithal fashion, just kind of reinforcing the most top parts of the red armor. Now after that dried, I wasn't totally satisfied, so I went in one last time with it thinned down just a little bit more, and I just applied it from the top again, and I just tried to reinforce and punch up that red just a little bit more. Next up, black details, so we'll be using Citadel's contrast paint Black Legion. Alright, after 9 years of my life, I got all that done, and next up we're going to grab our cold gray and our bold white, 50-50 mix, and we're just going to establish base coats for the areas of the armor that are going to be white. Now your mileage may vary, but I don't paint the best with white, so I do my best to try to mix paints with white and stay away from painting absolute white, other than doing edge highlights of certain things. It's easier to highlight to white if you don't use white, and obviously white paint in the acrylic sphere for our hobby can be kind of a troublesome paint to use, and so I try to avoid that at all costs by just working in thin layers and building up from a gray. Now I did start off with a 50-50 mix of the gray and the white, and then when I did go with my second coat, I did use about 80% white to about 20% gray. Now we're just going to bust out the black again real quick and just hit those black details on the shield that I missed. Alright, now for the longest and probably most tedious part of this whole scheme, I think, and that would be doing all the edge highlighting. This is sped up tremendously, and I did not pick out every single detail. I can only imagine how long that would have taken, but I did my best to pick out, the key details, give you a general sense of what's going on certain parts of the model, but then I tried to just move on. This isn't a Golden Demon entry, and I by no means am, one of those seeking perfection painters. I just want to find, a happy medium between, key details and, not going absolutely mad painting gray edge highlights on black armor. The best 3 tips I can give you in regard to doing these techniques are wick off your excess paint, okay? The direction of the model and, how you are getting at the detail is very key, and sweep with the side of your brush. Do not paint with the tip of your brush. Alright, now that those 13 days have passed, I'm going to move on to burnt red, and I'm just going to use that to do a couple of darker red bits. There's some striping work on a couple of pieces of art for Farsight that I've seen, and I by no means am I trying to replicate it for by picture, but I just pick out a couple details, to just kind of break up that red armor. And also, that's where I put most of the scribe work later on, and so I use that as opposed to, you know, being stuck with, where I've done all this work building up a red and then I have to kind of go tediously back. I just have that burnt red that I was using, and I can go back and touch it up after I make all my mistakes. Now, I don't know what they say. I don't know what they mean. Hell, I don't even know what they are. But there's a bunch of white markings all over his armor on the box art and on a bunch of, art on the internet. And I'm not about to learn a whole nother language to paint specific things on him. So I'm just going to paint a bunch of lines and things I think make it look cool. If you need to, fulfill that urge in your life to have actual Tau writing on your actual Tau model, well, by all means. But I'm sorry, I'm not your guy. I apologize. So after I did the initial work, I did go back with a little bit more white mixed into my gray and finalized all of those markings on his armor. And with the burnt red in the background and the strong red armor effect, I think it looks great. I think it breaks up the armor really good. I think where I messed up, I fixed enough, and I honestly couldn't be happier. I'm really, really excited to see how this comes out. It's working out really great so far. Another little tip, if you're painting Tau and you don't have a wet palette, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Make sure to have most of the colors you're using at the time at the ready. And if you do make mistakes along the way, you have the color there and you can just kind of cover up your detail and all is good. Alright, with all that annoying line work done, I needed to cleanse myself, and I figured I would direct some attention to the base. I grabbed a couple different contrast paints, Skeleton Horde, Agros Dunes, Snakebite Leather, and I just kind of, do a slosh of all of them all over the model. Paint up the trees with the darker tones, save the brighter tones for the earth, and, just kind of do little splotches of the darker color everywhere to kind of just mix it up and, give the eye more to look at. Next, we're going to take 2 shots of whiskey and grab our fine detail brush and some black paint. And we're going to paint these little tiny CVS receipts that he has on his sword and on his hip. Alright, this is the grim dark future where there is nothing but war, so obviously we can't have fresh receipts. There's no CVS's on the battlefield, so he's obviously been carrying these around for a while. So we're going to age them up with some Agrax Earthshade. And then I just use my finger and I wipe it away from the way flat surfaces to kind of just add some, volume to them. Now, something you should know about me with this next step, I fucking hate gold. And that I don't hate gold, the material, I hate gold painting gold. So I found a method a while ago using metallics and using different shades over them. So if you have a certain recipe you like to do gold, you don't by no means need to follow me. I just went in with pale burnt aluminum, and then after that I just washed it with Cassandra yellow. And for this style, I use 2 coats just to be sure and make it look as, rich as possible. Next up, we're going to paint the sword, so I'm going to grab my jade and my bright jade. And I kind of, I base coated and forgot that, the camera wasn't rolling. And so on the bottom side of the sword, you can kind of see what I did as a base coat. I literally just, that darker jade and then the bright jade and then jade with some white at the very tip. And then from there, I did various, kind of line hash marks. There's quite a few ways to paint power swords. Honestly, I didn't even see a video or a style or a picture that kind of had it going exactly the way I did it. So I'm by no means trying to, reinvent the wheel. I just, I didn't really want to, soak a million years into painting the sword. There's already been so many kind of more tedious points of this model, and so I kind of just, figured some clean line work just like every other part of this model, and I figured I'd find somewhere with a kind of happy medium. Now, after allowing that some time to dry, I actually went in off camera and used some metallic paint inside of that little, I don't know what that detail is called, but it's in the tip of his sword there, and I actually did miss one of the other little gyro things on the sword, so I just hit those with the Cassandra yellow as well. Now we're going to go in with Vallejo Game Color Fluorescent Green, and I'm just going to hit the little spot on the lens here. I used some white off camera, and I just tried to hit the lens a little bit and kind of create a little bit of a reflective surface just to give us something to look at on his head that wasn't his helmet. And a quick little dab of green wash just to pick out that lens. Now, any rational person would stop right here, finish up the base details, paint that rim black, and we're finished. But not me. I have a sickness, and I can't help myself sometimes, and so we're just gonna ruin this. We're gonna hose it down with some varnish. In this case, we're gonna use AK Interactive's matte varnish, and I'm gonna give a good, nice coat over the entire model and the base, and allowing it a good amount of time to dry. I believe it was about 2 hours, but you do not need to even go that long, especially applied via airbrush. If you are varnishing with a rattle can, obviously, follow the instructions on your can of choice. And today I paid for my sins because instead of grabbing Streaking Grime, I grabbed Streaking Effects. And honestly did not even pick up on it until I was about halfway done hosing him down. And I looked over at the bottle and I was like, fuck! That's not my Streaking Grime. And so I just did full send and hoped for the best at this point. For those a little unfamiliar with airbrushing on his sword, that's actually Silly Putty. Silly Putty works as a great masking tool. I keep a couple eggs right near the airbrush station, and anytime I need to mask something off, I just pull out a chunk and wrap up whatever I need to do, and I proceed to party. Alright, after our big giant boo-boo of using the wrong enamel paint, we're going to go back with our mineral spirits, and a lot of people use Q-tips. I do not understand that at all. So I have a dedicated kind of wider brush that I use, and I really focus on my directionality and sweeping along the model, making sure to kind of leave that enamel in the recesses and just scoop up off of the flat surfaces to bring back my colors and bring this model back to life. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with enamel paints or just kind of the Streaking Grime products or things of that nature, this could kind of come off as being a super time-consuming process. I'm very familiar with, GW inks and washes and shades and all the other kind of, contrast paints, all the other kind of products they've had. And, the one thing I really enjoy about using enamel products is that, first of all, you can tint and kind of do these effects with, thinned out inks and with thinned out washes in an airbrush. But you get a certain effect with using enamel products that really it brings all the colors together. Before there was a lot of areas where it was white, and then it was vibrantly red, and then it was black, and then it's, there's a couple, metallic details, and by bringing this all together, by blasting everything but that energy weapon with all of that streaking effect, what I've done is I've matted the model out quite a bit while leaving that sword relatively shiny, and it just created a really, really unique look to where it's dirty. It's not so much that it's beaten to death or he's seen a lot of war, but he's been using that armor, and that armor feels lived in. And I love the effects that we can create with these products, and I could not encourage them any further if you've never tried them. And for the third or fourth appearance in this video, my gray-white mix, I'm just going back, and I'd finally settled on a tree color, and I think I'm going to go for kind of a birch tree color with pink leaves. I think that with how kind of brought down the model is with the matte varnish and the enamel, that having just kind of a bright little bit of nature to look at on the base will really add some detail to this. So I'm going to come in with that Baylor brown and that ice yellow, and first I just kind of, splotch the color on a little bit just to kind of, mix up the base more, and then I bring out my dry brush and hit that yellow over it to kind of pick it out and pop it back up so that you can actually see the details. Then we're going to go in with Carroburn Crimson, and I'm going to pick out all the little flowery tips of the tree. Next up, I just grabbed the 3 kind of closest greens that I could find in my basing drawer and mixed them up in a little dish, grabbed some super glue, and just started applying little areas where I'd apply a tuft, and then I'd put a little bit of green grass around it, and just trying to add a little bit of variety more to the base. And with those last details finished up on the base, we are done. Just need to paint the base rim black or whatever color of your choice, as long as it's black, and we are done. Commander Farsight in the books. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you. This was, to date, my longest video that I've made. My channel is completely supported by my iPhone and its very few capabilities, but I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Deuces.